Привет! Welcome to another discussion by the Russian Asian. Um, I'll never do that again. And okay, so I've been watching a lot of Dr. Jordan B Peterson recently, and the first time I started watching him, I was just like, man, this guy, his ideas are crazy. And then I was just like, okay, well, he is very credible. He's very intelligent. The more I watch him, the more I'm like, you know what? This guy's worth listening to. You should definitely listen to him. I don't know why you stumbled upon this video before you've actually stumbled upon him, if you haven't listened to him. But there are some things that I don't quite agree with, mainly because it just doesn't make sense to me. When he talks about nihilism and these I understand these new atheists are sort of, they have flaws and everything, bringing about sort of a Newtonian truthfulness in their beliefs, which I'm personally listening to him and understanding it, I'm like, yeah, Darwinian makes more sense to me because I'm a biochemistry major, so science, everything's a theory, right? Now, theory doesn't necessarily mean, oh, it's just made up. It means that it's as certain as you can get with the evidence provided, beyond a reasonable doubt. There is a 99.99999% chance of it being true at this very moment, unless something crazy comes and blows it up, like gravity. I know that when I step out of this window, the window's right next to me, by the way. Let me just, boom, that window. I stepped out of that window. Theory is I'm gonna fall to my death. Or it's only 3 stories, so I don't know, maybe like a couple broken bones, broken legs. But I'm saying, yeah, I'm gonna fall due to gravity. Okay, but the one thing I have issue with is, I wrote this all on this computer, that's why I may just look over here, is nihilism and why morality won't disappear if everyone accepted it. Okay, I am a nihilist, right? Now, main reason for that, gosh, this reasoning that I have why they will accept nihilism and why morality won't disappear, it's a double-edged sword now that I think about it, because the basis of it is because it's it's irrational, and a lot of what Jordan B Peterson talks about is irrational ways of living. So this might just bite me in the ass. But anyway, okay, well, so nihilism, it reveals that God isn't real and everything is meaningless. Pretty much the basic thing of it. You can go so much more deep into it, but that's what I really take away from it. And he recalls, Dr. Peterson, that Nietzsche said that this would put the world in an every man for himself type situation, as everything goes, since there is no higher authority, aka God, So there's no absolute moral compass, right? But I believe morality is so unfairly given credit for originating from religion. Like, I understand. Every religious person says, man, without religion there'd be no morality. And to me, I feel like, who are you to assume that? How? Okay, I understand you got your 10 commandments, right? But obviously there was something before, Moses came and wrote that, right? We weren't just a bunch of apes tearing each other apart, right? So I believe that morality is actually far older than any religion, and it comes down to one thing, and that's survival. Survival is the basis for morality. Out of all the driving and motivational forces in our bodies, the reward pathway, adrenal glands, all that, survival is the strongest force. Yet it's the least used nowadays, obviously, because we've pretty much conquered the world. But it is the original dominance hierarchy that humans were a part of many millennia ago. Peterson, he's the one that really talks about and explains dominance hierarchies, like the need to be successful and climb the social ladder, gain the most material wealth or whatnot, what have you. So during this time when survival was the first dominance hierarchy on the planet, this is when morality came about, right? Now, I took God debate class in high school. Yeah, I know. I am very unqualified to talk about this, alright? This is just me trying to be as logical and as possible for just a 21-year-old nihilist that's gotta say something. Ugh. Right, you can just feel the energy coming off me. But, so what was I saying? I was saying I took a God debate class in high school. And one of the questions that my teachers, Dr. Neve and mainly Dr. Neve, Father Nate taught it. I went to a private Episcopalian school, boarding school actually. So yeah, I'm that type of guy. But anyway, the thing that Dr. Neve always brought up is, why don't we just barbecue and eat babies? Why don't we do that? And it always came down to because we have morals. And it was like, well, why do we have morals? Because religion. So boom, you can't defeat that argument because you assume that morality comes from religion. And the reason why we don't do that is because it's irrational, okay? Survival is dominance hierarchy number one, right? And obviously we imitate those that are most successful so we can survive, right? Now, there is no reason to survive if we don't reproduce. And if we reproduce and barbecue and eat our offspring, that's irrational. That's not rational. That goes against our whole survival mentality, right? We're trying to survive so we can reproduce, and then we just kill off the thing, right? So that's our instincts, right? So morality, instincts help us survive, and morality is a further expansion of instincts, right? It's instincts with intelligence. So, the reason why I believe that the world will not destroy itself if everyone becomes hyper-rational is because rationality is the most recent and least developed addition to the human body. Now, that's a double-edged sword. That can be like, well, if people are irrational, why don't they just destroy the world? Well, let me see what happens when I watch this video and then angrily type this out. Some of this might sound stupid, but this was my original idea. So Dr. Peterson said in his interview that when a creature evolves, it doesn't create a new thing out of nothing, right? I'm paraphrasing here just to be clear. It builds a new thing on top of an old thing. There's scientific evidence that our brains during our evolution grew massively. And the driving force for us before then, for lack of a better term, was our emotions, our instincts, our reward pathway. So, what I am arguing is that we are not intelligent beings, rather emotional beings with intelligent accessories. If we were simply intelligent, then there would be no instances of irrationality within our species, right? In other words, we would be AI, artificial intelligence. However, good thing we are NI, natural intelligence. We came about naturally. Now, before the time of intelligence, how did we survive without religion, right? We worked based on our instincts and our emotions. In my mind, Peterson suggests that the world will be a worse place with hyper-rationality. I can only think of one thing. Chimpanzees. Okay. So we know that chimpanzees, not the most intelligent thing. Which I'll come back to why what I just said before then makes sense after I say this. So, chimps, yeah, they're aggressive and will kill, other chimps. But they don't kill everyone who stands in their way. Like, why doesn't the strongest, smartest, fastest chimp just murder every other male chimp and just take all the female chimps to himself and just reproduce? Like, just him alone. Why doesn't he do that? Because it's irrational. It is dangerous. And it threatens the chimp himself if he were to wipe out all of the other male chimps. Because now you're exposing your chimp group to a outside threat, right? If an outside threat comes and all your chimps can't defend themselves because you're the only one, then boom, you're dead, and so are many of your female chimp consorts. Now, then why doesn't the female chimps just, they say, look, you killed all these other chimps and we love you, so we're gonna also fight with you and protect our chimp society. Then why, if that's to happen, then why didn't one female chimp just murder all the other female chimps and then be the only one and take all the male chimps as their consorts, right? So yeah, why aren't the gender's roles reversed? It's because, again, that's irrational, because on average, biologically, men are the stronger sex. I'm probably just pissed off a bunch of feminists with that statement, but it's true. We got bigger bones, more muscles. Not me, per se. I do look kind of fit. But I sort of position myself more, masculine. But that's getting away from the point that I'm trying to make, right? It's irrational. It puts yourself in danger, and it's instincts, right? If they did that, chimps would be extinct. They'd just rip each other apart, and they'll all be dead. Most things would be dead if they thought like that, right? So, yeah, and last time I checked, the chimps didn't believe in Christianity, so they don't have a sort of higher authority telling them what to do, right? I haven't seen any chimps crucifying any other chimps. So, there's that. And why, if we remove religion from humans, that we will hypothetically destroy ourselves, because we're going to think, oh no, everything's meaningless. Might as well every man for himself and try to get the most material possession I can. Why don't we do that? Right? I believe if we remove religion, then morality won't be left hanging on a string with nothing supporting it, but it will instead revert to its true origin in the dominance hierarchy of survival. I don't believe morality is relative per se, just because it's I feel like it's on a spectrum, right? And society can move left or right on the spectrum depending on how severe the survival situation is, right? But there comes a point to where like you don't move past these two marks, right? There's insanity here and there's just more insanity on the other side, right? Like if you were, we could hypothetically put us in a situation where morality doesn't exist, right? I can say, well, what happens if you and your 3 children were stuck on top of a mountain and you only had rations to survive for 2 weeks, right? And after that, then 2 of your children would die, and then the other one would die, and then you would die, unless you killed the 2 of them, and then you and your other child ate them and then survived, right? We can make that argument where morality doesn't exist. But, right, I believe that just morality is a fluffed up word that is really just comes down to instincts. It's really just based on our instincts. We like to argue that humans don't really have instincts anymore because we're intelligent, right? But as I said, evolution, well, as Dr. Peterson said, evolution doesn't build new things out of nowhere. It builds on top of the old things. So obviously we had instincts back then, and they've just been ingrained into our intelligence. And our intelligence has tried to define what our instincts are, and it's defined it as morality, saying we don't do these things because, they're immoral, right? Where they really go against our instincts. That's it. We don't steal from another human being. Why? Because it increases our risk of dying. You see highly socialized animals, they know what's bad. They know what's gonna get them hurt, right? A chimp goes and steals something from another chimp, the chimp that got stolen from is gonna react and probably like chase it, maybe beat the crap out of the other chimp, right? So that's instincts, and that's also learning, socializing. Man, you can I understand. I'm thinking about it and I'm like, Dr. Peterson would totally just destroy me right now. Like, oh, wait a second, you can't have your cake and eat it too, blah blah blah. You just said this. All I'm saying is this is my strongest attempt in trying to understand the world, right? Because I'm a nihilist and I don't believe in material possession. I don't believe in accumulating the most material possession because it doesn't make sense. Dr. Peterson said you can pick a point in time in which this video in this documentary is irrelevant. Like, why should I care about this documentary? Because it's irrelevant in 1 billion years. Right? And that's what's the most rational thing for me. Why should I worry about trying to become a billionaire, right? I don't need to become a billionaire to survive. I just need to make enough money to survive. So, the most significant impact that I can make is in someone else's life, right? I don't believe humans can make a 1% significant impact on the universe because it's always expanding. We can observe it but us going outside of our own solar system and going onto another system and colonizing that, I don't know if that will ever happen. I can see us getting to Mars, but man, you're talking about some Star Trek stuff right there. Okay. Again. Right? So, instincts come from survival, and our survival increases if there are more of us. Like what I was saying with the whole why don't they kill everyone? There's safety in numbers. So just like children can play a game based on complex rules of a dominance hierarchy, but not know the rules, so to humans, survive life following the instincts of morality without knowing the instincts. Now, of course, you can survive in the world being immoral and against, in a sense, survival. Since I'm kind of putting those two things on the, morality is a derivative of instincts, which is a derivative of survival. Right? You just simply create another dominance hierarchy. That's what we've been doing. We've been creating, who's the best fighter? Obviously then they become the war chief, and then we were like, well, who gets the most money? Obviously the one that's the best planter, so then he gets to live in a castle, whatever, or a bigger house. Right? And then we say, well, who's the best at being a politician? Then he becomes president. We've been creating dominance hierarchies our entire lives, right? There has been governments ruled without religion, obviously, and they've done terrible things, right? And Peterson argues, that's just the way things will be if there's no religion. Like, I just don't see how we can be so irrational. I don't see how we can. Are we just programmed to fail if we just stop, believing in something higher than ourselves, right? It really boggles my mind because it's Marxism, right? He was talking about it in the Joe Rogan Experience, how compassionate intellectuals are just, they're very attracted to the idea, right? But every time it's been put out, in the government, every time it's been tried out, hundreds of millions of people have died. And I've always believed that all forms of government are good, and we're just bad people. Like, that's what I've always believed. I always believed that, if we did have a God that was just and good, and he was put in charge of, the government, and he, did it as ideally as possible, it would be great, right? And then the real dilemma I'm having here is, can an idea like Marxism be applied effectively in which nobody suffers from it, right? Because it seems so attractive. Like, yeah, your job is to provide the needs of other people, and their job is to provide the needs for you, right? And you work at the job that you love, blah blah blah, and everyone gets the same stuff. And it's sort of like, yeah, that sounds like a utopia, but instead it becomes a hell. Anyway. But as we've seen, all of those governments have failed, to a degree. The Soviet Union collapsed. China's trying to become more democratic, but I feel like they're kind of years. The true example that Peterson mentions is North Korea, which he says everyone just takes as a joke about these, sort of Marxist type governments. And man, it's sort of like, how can you have such a rational idea, but it just totally becomes irrational in the way that we put it into place, and it just destroys everything. It just kills everything. Like, do we need to make a government that governs, us in governing, like it keeps us in check, like, yo, you're bad people, okay? You'll do terrible, shitty things as soon as there's an opportunity to. I guess the final point I was going to make was Dr. Peterson. He was arguing that the stories in the Bible are far older than the Bible itself. And he got his conclusions from studying a woman's work. I can't remember right now. It was in that 2-hour interview that he did. And anyway, her work consisted of exploring the possibility that snakes and humans co-evolved. And, the first person to defeat the snake was highly popular among the women, right? And this sort of experience that these people had, like they put it into a story, into an archetype. You can see it in Genesis where the snake tries to, get. And he goes into real deep detail on this. But I was just thinking, so our instincts was to watch out for the snakes, right? And then from our instincts, reward happened because we were able to defeat the snake, and then we got the Bible story of Genesis, right? So I'm saying, well, instincts, morality, interchangeable in some sense. Anyway, this was a shitty discussion. I don't have anyone to discuss it with. And that doesn't really matter anyway. In a billion years.